What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Post-Gazette Pirates YouTube channel. Noah Hiles here in Dunedin, Florida. Pirates lose by a final of 2-1 to the Blue Jays Sunday afternoon. A lot to get into, not necessarily about the game, but just news here on Sunday as the opening day roster is close to being finalized. We'll start with the catcher position. My first takeaway there, Endy Rodriguez makes the team as catcher number 2. Last night, roster moves were announced. Henry Davis, Nick York, Billy Cook, all optioned to AAA Indianapolis. Hunter Stratton gets a spot on the 40-man roster. His contract is selected. Joshua Palacios designated for assignment to make room for Stratton on the 40-man. Don't know if Stratton's going to be on the Major League opening day roster, but the fact that he's on the 40-man roster should be noted. But let's get back to the Endy Rodriguez news. Obviously, like I just said, Henry Davis optioned last night, so Endy Rodriguez wins the backup catching job. Hit the ball very well this spring. I believe he's hitting over 320 as we enter the final day of Grapefruit League play tomorrow. And Derek Shelton talked about how this is a guy that's not only going to see time behind the plate to start the season, but is also going to be getting some repetition at first base. Now, the reason this is notable is because all spring we've been asking about Endy Rodriguez. Will we see Endy Rodriguez at first base? Because Spencer Horwitz is injured. What is the solution there? And one of the easier solutions you would think would be playing the guy who has experience at that position. But because Endy missed all of last season with an elbow injury, because of elbow surgery, I should say, they wanted to spend the bulk of his spring having him work as a catcher. That was a priority, and Shelton reiterated that this morning. He talked about how they wanted him to know that they view him as a catcher. And catcher's obviously a defensive obligation that takes more time and effort than first base. So they wanted him to spend pretty much all of spring training as a catcher, getting reps behind the plate, getting familiar with the pitching staff. And once it became clear that Endy was going to make the big league roster out of camp as catcher number 2, they felt comfortable with starting to consider giving him reps at first base. If I had to guess, Endy Rodriguez probably starts at first base tomorrow against the Twins in the Grapefruit League finale. And I think we see him at first base as a backup. I would imagine Triolo is probably the starter there. And I think that the fact that Endy made the club as a backup catcher and has the ability to play first base, that might have an impact on how the final roster spots are determined. Maybe DJ Stewart isn't a lock to make this team like I thought he was a couple of days ago, with Rodriguez and Triolo being a duo, and then Adam Frazier being the third option behind Triolo and Endy. Do they need a DJ Stewart? Who knows? It'll be interesting to see how that all unfolds in the final day down here in Florida. So something definitely noteworthy there with Endy not only making the team, but as the team goes out and says, he will be playing first base in the regular season in addition to catcher. Not a starting first baseman, but he will see reserve duty there, and it's a way for him to get at bats. He's been swinging a good bat. That's what got him onto the opening day roster, and I expect him to get some run there before Horwitz returns. Second big takeaway for today, something the Post-Gazette broke, Kyle Nicolas will not be making the opening day roster. A big surprise to, I think, a lot of people on social media, at least, and to our readers. This was a guy who I think showed a lot of potential last year in the bullpen. Pitched over 50 innings, had a sub-4 ERA. The velocity is top-notch. I mean, the stuff's there, obviously, with Kyle. Control still remains an issue. Coming into today, no Pirates reliever logged more innings of work in Grapefruit League play than Kyle Nicolas. That was prior to today. He was their most used reliever as far as innings pitched. Everyone who pitched more than him was a starter or at least a hybrid type. So I was kind of shocked to learn this. And when you look at it, it just goes to show the bullpen depth they have when they're making these final decisions. And not all final decisions have been made. I think Nicolas was just one of the first decisions to be made because he still has minor league options. This is a guy I still think we're going to see a ton of at the major league level this year. I think there's still a chance he pitches high leverage spots for this team. I still think we'll see him in the 7th, 8th, and maybe even in the 9th a couple times throughout the course of a 162-game season. But when you're looking at Nicolas and you look over his body of work, obviously the control was still an issue this spring camp. I believe he walked 8 batters in 9 innings. That was the same total as strikeouts as he had. And I know some of those walks piled up in one or two specific outings. But overall, that gives him something to work on while you're sending him down there. They're taking advantage of his options. This is something a lot of big league clubs do. And it's just something that a lot of big league clubs with depth do. This is a move that probably doesn't happen had they not added Caleb Ferguson, who will probably make the team, Tim Meza, who will probably make the team, Justin Lawrence, who will probably make the team. I mean, these are all new additions. Tanner Rainey, another guy who I think has a really good shot to make the team. This is a sign of that because of this development here. So I don't know. I think if these new additions aren't made, Nicolas is a shoo-in to make this roster. I still think he probably should have made it. I think he is one of their top 8 bullpen arms, but I get the logic behind it at the very least. Third and final takeaway today, something that unfolded in the game right behind me here in center field. Jared Triolo gets his first outfield action ever in spring training. We saw Triolo play an inning of right field last year in the extra innings against Arizona in late July. But this guy is a Gold Glove utility infielder until today. Now he's maybe getting some reps in the outfield. He played the final 3 innings in center field today. Very interesting development late in camp, which, again, could perhaps shine light onto some of the roster decisions that are coming up. Ji-Hwan Bae, Jack Sawinski, 2 guys competing for that 4th outfield job. Both of them can play center field, but can they do it as defensively, or can they play defense as well as Jared Triolo can? Who knows? I mean, Triolo has only played it 7 times in Double-A, but with the defensive potential there, it's hard to discount him. So, excuse me. Just looking at what they could do defensively with Triolo being a backup, I don't expect him to take any starts away from O'Neal Cruz, but having him there as a late inning option, and maybe you move Cruz to a corner outfield spot, maybe move him in the DH spot, who knows? But there's a lot of interesting things that could take place here if they're going to continue to give Triolo reps in the outfield moving forward. I think it's someone, as I said, he's athletic enough to do it. He's played there briefly in the minor leagues, and I just think that he's good enough defensively everywhere to make it work. It's just another interesting late development that's definitely noteworthy here as spring training wraps up. I'm Noah Hiles. You can check out all of my work at post-gazette.com and subscribe to this YouTube channel if you don't already at PG Pirates. One more day of spring training. Roster moves will be announced here, I think, over the next 24 to 36 hours. We'll have you covered there, and we'll have you covered in Miami from Game 1 all the way through Game 162 in Atlanta. Be sure to follow along. We'll have all of your Pirates coverage you need.